Very warm good evening to all. Today we will take the first topic about the properties. There is a dispute in the properties, and this you will find the rampant. That cases of the dispute of the properties, even find in matrimonial disputes, also in corporations, big corporations, they are also fighting over the land disputes. So there are many kind of land disputes, but the property which belongs to families is very important. And here there are mainly two kinds of property, and this you have to remember for all your life. One is self-acquired and another is ancestral property. Now self-acquired property is very easy to understand. There's if I am working hard and I'm getting buying some property, or I'm getting a gift from somebody, it is my own self-acquired property. Even if it is a gift, it is self-acquired property. So whatever is my own with no tag of another person is my self-acquired property, and I'm free to distribute, to give it free away, or give it, sell it, or to gift it somebody. I'm free to do it. So self-acquired property is property which is actually my self-owned property, and nobody can question me that what I'm going to do with it. It can be a father who says, I have got this flat, I have purchased this flat, and now I'll be selling it off. He can sell it off without distributing among his own children, without even thinking about his wife, because it is self-acquired property. So self-acquired property comes with a feature where you are free to do anything with the same property. Now, another part of this is the ancestral property. Now, ancestral property name itself depicts that it comes from your ancestors. Minimum there should be 4 generations, which is called the ancestral property. But here I would like to tell you, any person who does not make a will, suppose this flat is my self-acquired property, and if I do not make a will and I have 2 children, now this will be divided as per the, I being a Hindu, as per the Hindu law. Now what happens, if it is my self-acquired property in my lifetime, if I make a will and to give it away to somebody, trust, or to donate it, to give to somebody, then it is like uh, my self-acquired property, I have given it. But if I die without making a will, it becomes an ancestral property. Then whoever my legal heirs will be sharing the same as per the law of the country. I being Hindu, Hindu law will follow. If I am Christian, Christian law will follow. If I am Parsi, Parsi law will follow for succession. So always remember, a person who dies intestate, that is without making a will, that time that property becomes again an ancestral property. There is another part also to this, that suppose there is an ancestral property, A is having an ancestral property, and he dies. Now the next 2 generations uh, will again get these properties. Now here maybe there is a possibility A has got 1 son and 1 daughter. Now this will give 50-50% of the property. Now this is in the hands of this A's son and daughter. This becomes a self-acquired property. So ancestral property, once divided, comes into hands. Please pay attention to this. Ancestral property, once divided between the legal heirs, become their self-acquired property. So the moment ancestral property is divided and it is distributed among the legal heirs, it becomes their self-acquired property. Now what happens, that A son, A dies, his property is divided into his daughter and son equally. Now this daughter or son dies again without making a will. Now, because this property has come from A to daughter and son, and they had not made a will, so again it will become an ancestral property, because they have never earned this property. It has come through them, through their ancestors. So this is one position. Another position, suppose the daughter sell off that flat in her lifetime. So there is no ancestral property remains. So she has enjoyed her money. So this is how the ancestral property becomes a self-acquired property. If the legal heir who gets this property, inherits this property, and in case he makes will, it becomes his self-acquired property. If he does not make a will, does not do anything with that property, then it becomes again ancestral property, his or her death. So ancestral property is something for which there is no will, or there is no some family arrangements made to this. There are family settlement deeds and all those things are there. But always remember, self-acquired property is a property which can be given away by the owner to anybody. It does not require it, he should, or to give it to wife or his children or his relatives. And about the ancestral property, you cannot do anything. I will take another example to make you understand. A lady came to me. She was about 60, 65 years old. Her husband expired. Now there was this flat in her husband's name. Now thereafter, her children, 3 children, gave the no objection, and the society transferred the flat in her name. Now she came to me to make a will of the same. I told her you can't make. She said, why I can't make? I have the flat in my name. I told her, you are just a trustee of that property flat. Your children have given no objection because you have never earned this flat. It was your husband's flat. He has not made a will that it should go to my wife. Now in this situation, what happened? The wife becomes just a trustee of the joint family property, and her children will be also sharing this property as per their laws, which may be Christian, Hindu, or Parsi, or Muslim law, Muslim personal law. They will be guided by the personal law for division of the property. So even if the flat is transferred in the wife's name with the objection, widow, that is, with the objection from the other, all the legal heirs, it still is a joint family property and ancestral property. It can, the wife cannot take the decision to sell it off or to give it to only one daughter or one son like this. So it's a very tricky position, but if you go on reading this property matters, you will be understanding how does the law is laid down. Now see, there is a sea change in the law in the year 2005 under the Hindu law. The daughter was never a co-partner previously. She was having some share, but not equivalent to brother. But 2005 onwards, the daughter becomes the equal shareholder of the property, along with her the other legal heirs, that is the her brothers, and all the sister and brothers will be having the equal property rights in the after 2005 amendment. It is one of the good amendment which you should read and which tried to bring the equality among the daughter and the sons of the Hindu male person. Now, here we have to understand that before 2005, she was unable even to ask for partition. Only son was allowed to do partition. He could have claimed that I want partition in the ancestral property. But after 2005, even the daughter can claim. She becomes a co-partner and she can open the partition. So 2005 amendment has brought a very important and significant change in the way the Hindu daughters will be treated in the future. So it's very easy now that the son and daughter are equally in the eyes of law, at least in the Hindu law. So we have to be thankful to the parliament to bring this law. And one of the important part of the same is that after 2005, there were a lot of property dispute came to the court, but the law is very clear now. If it is an ancestral property, daughter will be of having equal share. If there is a will, then the will has to be accepted by the legal heirs. So actually it has, I would say, actually by bringing it at equal footing the daughters, the law has been simplified. And slowly I believe that other laws, the Muslim laws, Christian law, and Parsi, they will also follow in the future the path what the Hindu law has been decided by the parliament. So slowly we are going towards the equality. Even now the bill which is pending in the parliament for discussion about the bringing the age of the girl child to 20, major girl to 21. The male can marry, the boy can marry at the age of 21. girl can marry at the age of 18, but now they are trying to bring it 21. They both, there are so many medical reasons, scientifically also. Also, it will give her, according to my own personal opinion, she can, because after 18, there are some families, they feel that if they have got a good uh, proposal of a boy, they marry her off the girls. But now, if she's given time till 21, she will be studying, she'll be making her own career along with her brother. So it is actually empowering the girl or the woman. So that this is also one welcoming step by the government, which we in parliament, which we should actually encourage and accept and welcome such changes. So slowly we are going for uniform civil code, which is actually the need of the our country, because if there are so many laws, it becomes actually difficult even for the courts and even for the lawyers to understand. I have actually met few people who say in Muslims, they say the husband can give talaq, and what about the wife? Can she give divorce? Legally, she can give. There's a dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act, and the same grounds which are available to the Hindu wife is also available under law, under a act. Before the court, she can go to family court, or in a remote area where there is no family court, there is a senior division, she can actually go and file a case against the husband for divorce. That is a dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act, Section 2. She has got all the equal cruelty, the impotency, lot of things, renouncing the world, change of the religion. There are so many grounds are given which are actually equivalent to the Hindu woman. So, so there are so many laws, maybe 3,000, 4,000 laws. It is actually very difficult for each to know all the laws. But if there is a uniform civil code in future, as there is an enunciation in the our own constitution, slowly we will be going to that part, and it will actually bring lot of equality and lot of clarity about the law, and the people I will be life will be more peaceful if the law is similar to for all the people. So this was all. Now I welcome Sumit to read for today. Sumit, can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Can you hear me, ma'am? Hello,
Yes.
good evening.
Just a minute, I'll be sharing the screen.
Yeah, okay.
Sumit will be reading one of the important part about the criminal law where bail is granted. And now here is a position where the Supreme Court is saying the courts can't lose sight of serious nature of accusations while considering bail players. It is about the cancellation of the bail. Normally we hear about the bail to be granted. Now this is the cancellation of the bail. Sumit, start reading.
Okay. New Delhi, December 19th. An individual's liberty is an invaluable right, but courts cannot lose sight of the serious nature of accusations while considering a bail plea. The Supreme Court has said while setting aside a Patna High Court order granting bail to an accused in the murder case. The observation was made by a bench headed by Justice L. Nageswara Rao. The top court was critical of the High Court judgment granting bail to Pappu Singh, the head of a panchayat in Patna district, while taking note of the submissions of lawyer Smarhar Singh that the accused had attempted to kill Rupesh Kumar in 2017 before succeeding in 2020 and then was absconding for 7 months. The Supreme Court bench, also comprising Justice B.R. Gavai and B.V. Nagartna, said a balance between the right to liberty and the severity of the case has to be struck by courts while dealing with such pleas. Ultimately, the court considering an application for bail has to exercise discretion in a judicious manner and in accordance with the settled principles of law, having regard to the crime alleged to be committed by the accused on the one hand and ensuring purity of the trial of the case on the other, said the bench. While considering the bail plea, a prima facie conclusion must be supported by reasons and must be arrived at, having regard to the vital facts of the case brought on the record, it said. The bench said that due consideration must be given to facts suggestive of the nature of the crime, the criminal antecedents of the accused, if any, and the nature of punishment that would follow conviction for the offences alleged. While we are conscious of the fact that liberty of an individual is an invaluable right, at the same time, while considering an application for bail, courts cannot lose sight of the serious nature of the accusations against an accused and the facts that have a bearing in the case, particularly when the accusations may not be false, frivolous, or vexatious in nature, but are supported by adequate material brought on record so as to enable a court to arrive at a prima facie conclusion. Justice Rao, writing the judgment for the bench, said, dealing with the facts of the case, the bench said that the accused has been facing trial in several criminal cases and had attempted to kill the accused in 2017 before finally succeeding in 2020. It also took note of the submissions of the lawyer that the accused suppressed his criminal history before the High Court. The High Court has lost sight of the vital aspects of the case and in very cryptic orders has granted bail to the respondent accused. For the reasons, we find that the High Court was not right in allowing the applications for bail filed by the respondent accused. Hence, the impunged orders passed by the High Court are set aside. The appeals are allowed, the Supreme Court ordered. According to the police, Papu Singh, along with co-accused Deepak Kumar, killed Rupesh Kumar on the night of February 19, 2020 in front of his mother at his home in Naubatpur police station area of Patna district. Papu Singh was on the run and was arrested on September 30th, 2020. He was in judicial custody for 9 months before being granted bail by the High Court, the lawyer said. An appeal seeking cancellation of bail was filed by complainant Brijmani Devi, the mother of the deceased, in the apex court. A separate first information report was lodged against the accused in 2017 for his attempt to kill Rupesh Kumar due to political rivalry.
Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you.
What Sumit read is about the cancellation of bail. Normally, we hear about the cases where we have to request for the bail or pray for the bail. Here, it was for the cancellation of the bail. This was a very serious case where the accused has tried in the past also killed the deceased person, and thereafter he actually succeeded in after some years in 2020. So when the court granted the bail, the matter went to the Supreme Court, and when the Supreme Court intervened, that accused right to bail is a different matter, but at the same time you also have to be way or careful about the rights of the complainant, that is the first informant. Here the person was no more. So what happened, the accused this complainant's mother have applied for the on behalf of, because her son was no more, she applied for the cancellation of the bail. The Supreme Court has very rightly said the accused has to be set at liberty, but at what cost? You also have to weigh how grievous or how serious or severity of the crime he has done. If the crime is very serious. Now here is the case that he attempted to murder the deceased person years back. Again, he tried it in 2020 and he succeeded in doing it. That means there was an intention, and such kind of offenders cannot be granted bail. And the Supreme Court has very rightly withdrew his bail, or would say cancel his bail. There is a provision in CRPC for cancellation of the bail also. So this was a really interesting piece. Thank you so much for reading it. Now we go to very important part of the junior laws today. When you go to the court first day, it is like because court may ask you some applications to give. Now it is really difficult because what we have learned in the college may not be actually useful in the court. We do not know how to write the application. And how do we know? By practice. If you are associated with some senior lawyer, I would request all of you, see the briefs, see the paper book of the all the paper books available. I had actually read more than 500 in Delhi after my 12 years practice. When I went to Supreme Court to become an AOR, I used to request my clerk to give the paper books. In the night, I used to read. I used to mark because there were more than 500. It was practically impossible for me to remember which file I have read. I used to read it again and again. And while reading that, I got to understand the other lawyers' views also. And I got some good reading material also in that. Now, see, it is not possible for everybody to get the lawyer's brief. If you come to my office 1 or 2 days, I will allow you to read the briefs with me. But how many briefs you can read? So the easiest way that whenever you get brief means the court papers of any case. We call it brief. We also in Delhi we call it paper book or the court papers. If you take this brief in your hand and if you get a chance, try to read the complete file. It may be, there may be English mistake, there may be opposite side lawyer has not put up it properly, but read it because you will understand the format. And there are many applications which you will find there. I will name some of the applications today which are the easiest to understand. See, the easy way to write an application in the family code, in the criminal code, you have to write a title. If it is an application, it's a short title. Normally, it's a short title. Wakalatnama, you have to give complete because you have to give address also. But in a normal application for adjournment, exemption, you can write the short title. So it's actually those who are practicing here, lawyers, they must be knowing. Amit Bhatia ji, Vandana also knows. Lalita is also there. A lot of, I may not be able to name everybody, but there are many people who knows how to write. For the juniors here who have just come to the field, then there is an application for exemption of the accused or complaint. There is a possibility your accused or your client cannot come to the court. So you apply for exemption. So you write a short title, application for exemption, may it please your honor. It is humbly submitted. In between, you have to write what is the reason that accused may be exempted for the day only. This is what you have to write. And sometime when it is a criminal trial, the court will ask you that if your accused is not present, are you challenging the identity of the accused? Then you have to write. Some judges ask, yes, that sir, I do not challenge the identity of accused. So accused is same, but he has not committed a crime. But you cannot challenge that he was not present at the time of crime, or he is not a person who was arrested. So they actually very tricky situation. So you have to be very careful when you give undertaking that I am not challenging the identity of the accused. And for this act of kindness, the accused or the complainant shall ever pray as in duty bound. Date on the left side, right side, your signature, advocate for accused. Simple. Sometimes you may not be the lawyer on the record because you are a new lawyer, your senior has sent you. So you can write for or as an holding advocate, as a junior advocate to Mr. So and so, Mrs. So and so. You can for by doing for you can sign it, but never sign on behalf of your senior unless it is permitted. So always take the permission of the senior before you sign any applications. It's always when the very first day you ask that whether I'm allowed to make such kind of application. The next is application for adjournment, which is very popular. Now, whenever you apply for adjournment, always very politely ask, because whenever you are asking adjournment from the court, you have to be very polite. You cannot ask adjournment say right, and your adjournment should be taken only when you feel that it is actually highly impossible to go ahead with the matter. Now your senior may have asked you that to take adjournment, then you have to write the proper reason. You cannot say that it's my son's birthday, so I'm not coming. I was held up in another court, so I cannot. You have to give proper reason. The court should never feel offended by your adjournment application. So whenever you are making an application for adjournment, be polite, be genuine. Give. There may be function in your family. You give. There is function in the family which I have to attend, and court may give any date. Now, when you go for adjournments, also you cannot say you want this date. Be polite to the court. Say I will be comfortable if court grants me Saturday. I'll be highly obliged to the court. The language should be very, very polite. Now, next is in civil normally way application of condonation. It is also in criminal. you have to go through Limitation Act. It's an application of condonation of delay. Now, whenever you are asking, there is a delay in filing something. If there is a 60 days timings, 90 days timing, 30 days timing, and if you are late for filing that appeal or maybe revision, that time you have to give proper reasoning why you are why you want they should condone your delay. Now, when you want the court to condone delay, explain the reason properly. And if it is a medical reason, you have to annex the medical copy. If there is a family reason, then you have to give the proper reason. There may be a family function, then you can annex the card or something. I had a case where the lady was pregnant and she was about to deliver the baby, and I couldn't call her from the Pune. But then I had a good reason, and court condoned the delay. So now in coronavirus, you will find when you go to indianqanun.com or any, that delay was condoned very kindly or in a very generous manner. The reason behind that, because corona, a lot of people were unable to travel, maybe due to restrictions on traveling due to pandemic. There is another application is for application of summons, application of reissue of summons, application of warrant, application of non-bailable warrant. Now, these are very common applications. If you go on reading the seniors brief, you will get an idea, and it will be actually very easy. And whenever you go to court, always remember, if your serial number is 10, so there are 9 matters going to be called before you. And after 10 also, there is a total 50 matters. There are 40 matters which are to be. If you really have a time, try to sit in the court, and you will learn lot of things, because there are lawyers, senior, there are really very good lawyers who speaks very good language. They submit to the court. That submission, see, in every matter, minimum 2 lawyers appear, sometime 1 or 2. If your serial number is 10, item number is 10, before you 9 matters are going to be called. 9 into 2 multiplied by 2, it will be 18 lawyers you will be hearing. So always try to sit in court whenever possible. Now, next application is, sometimes there is a warrant which you have taken and you have given it to police, but police is not reporting back what happened to warrant. Then you can apply to the court, issue notice to the police, application for issuing notice to the police. These are very simple application. Title, cause title will be same, short. Only the inner part will change every time. And you can always ask any senior, they will help you. Even the court, even if your senior is not, just ask any lawyer who is in the surrounding area, they will help you out. Then the application for bail, cash bail. Then there is a purses. Purses is something, some people find it real difficult. Purses is really very easy. There is no relief ask. See, if suppose I am closing my evidence, I do not want to examine any further witness. Now I'm not asking, but a court wants a confirmation from me, because it is always oral. The court will say, give in writing the purses, you do not want to examine any further witness, or give any purses in writing that you are admitting these documents. Now this purses is simple application, but without any court fee ticket. There is no need to do it. Why we do not put any ticket on the purses? Because we are not asking any relief. We are just asking, informing the court. The purses may be about the I'm giving my new address. There is a possibility that the accused or the complainant or parties have changed their address. That is mostly it is called memo of the address, address memo. But there is a possibility that any information which you want to give to, it can be purses. Now, next is very important, on reply. There is never a court fee attached. The reason behind it, whenever we are filing reply, we are not asking any relief. Always remember, whenever we are filing reply, written statement, we do not stick any court fee to that. The clear reason behind that, we are not asking it. So when applications, we put the tickets court fee. With Ashok Chakra, you must have seen, those who have worked with the lawyers, that whenever we put this court fee, it is like we are asking relief. If you are not asking any relief, there is no need to put the court fee. So you should be aware when to put the court fee, how much fees. In Maharashtra, there is a